Welcome to Exposed and Broken YouTube channel. We uncover the secrets of love, betrayal, and the choices that change everything.
The weight of love. Emily never thought love would feel this heavy. The first time she saw Nick, he was effortlessly cool, leaning against the bar, flashing that lopsided grin, making everyone around him laugh. He had that rare kind of presence, the kind that made people lean in when he spoke. And when he turned his attention to her, it was like gravity shifted. He made her feel seen, special, important. She fell hard and fast. He was thoughtful, spontaneous, the kind of man who sent good morning texts and made mixed CDs like they were living in the early 2000s. Their connection was electric, filled with whispered dreams of the future, inside jokes, and the unshakable certainty that they were meant to be. But love is a tricky thing. It has a way of making you ignore the quiet warning signs, the ones that whisper instead of scream. In the beginning, Nick had boundless energy. He planned spontaneous road trips, cooked elaborate meals, and spent weekends working on his car in the driveway with music blasting. But over time, something changed. The man who once couldn't sit still now spent hours on the couch, rubbing his back and wincing. He spoke of aches, of exhaustion, of a deep, unshakable pain that had settled into his body like an uninvited guest. Emily didn't question it. She was patient, understanding. She carried more weight in their relationship, picking up his slack when chores became too much for him. When he lost his job, she reassured him that they'd figure things out together. After all, that's what love was, wasn't it? Being there for someone, even when things got tough. But as the months dragged on, the imbalance grew. Nick's pain became his excuse for everything. He couldn't help around the house. Couldn't go grocery shopping. Couldn't make it to date nights. The couch became his throne, his world shrinking to the size of their living room. Yet, somehow, his pain never stopped him from seeing his friends. Emily noticed it the first time when his best friend invited him on a weekend hiking trip. She had hesitated, ready to remind him of how often he told her that even walking around the block was painful. But before she could say a word, he was already packing his bag. He came back sunburnt and sore, but grinning from ear to ear. It stung, but she told herself she was overthinking things. Then it happened again. And again. Music festivals, kayaking trips, nights out at the bar. Nick, the man too exhausted to fold laundry, always had energy to spare when it came to his friends. But when Emily asked for a simple dinner out, a walk in the park, anything that wasn't sitting in front of the TV, he sighed, rubbed his temples, and mumbled something about not feeling up to it. The pattern was there. She just wasn't ready to see it. Instead, she focused on finding solutions. She spent hours reading about chronic pain conditions, looking up specialists, suggesting alternative treatments. She brought him everything she found, hopeful that something, anything, might help him. But every time, Nick waved her off. Doctors wouldn't help. Medicine wouldn't do anything. He didn't need tests or therapy. He just needed time. Time that stretched on endlessly, with Emily carrying more and more of their shared life. Then, the financial strain began. Nick had been unemployed for months, and Emily was covering most of the bills. She told herself it was temporary, that as soon as he felt better, he'd get back on his feet. But he wasn't getting better. And he wasn't trying. Still, she stayed. Until the night the doubt fully took hold. They had been invited to a family gathering, one of the rare times Nick actually agreed to go somewhere with her. She watched as he laughed and chatted, animated and lively, regaling people with tales of his struggle with chronic pain. He spoke of how hard it was, how it affected his daily life, how it kept him from working, how it was the reason he spent so much time at home. He didn't mention the hiking trips. Or the music festivals. Or the weekend kayaking adventures. As she listened, something inside her cracked. It wasn't just the pain he was using as a shield, it was her. He had made her the caretaker, the provider, the one who gave and gave while he simply took. And the worst part? He didn't even seem to realize it. That night, lying in bed beside him, Emily stared at the ceiling and let the weight of it all settle over her. She wasn't sure if she was ready to confront him yet. But for the first time, she was ready to admit something to herself: love should not feel like this. And she wasn't sure she could carry it much longer. The breaking point. Emily had always been a problem solver, but some problems couldn't be solved, only seen for what they truly were. She tried one last time. One evening, after another day of doing everything alone, she sat Nick down. She told him she loved him. That she wanted them to be a team again. That she needed him to see a doctor, to try to get better, to find a way forward together. His response wasn't what she expected. "If you're not willing to step up and clean around the house more, maybe we shouldn't be living together." Emily blinked. "Nick, I do all the cleaning." "Not well enough," he scoffed. "You don't notice the little things. The yard, the car, the dust building up in places you don't even see. You should be taking care of that too." Her stomach turned. "Are you serious?" He wasn't done. He rattled off complaints, a list of things she failed to do, all while ignoring everything she already did. Then, like clockwork, he twisted the conversation back to his pain, to how she didn't understand, to how she was selfish for expecting him to do more. That was it. The final crack before the glass shattered. She wasn't angry. She wasn't even shocked. She was done. "I'm leaving," she said, the words solid and unwavering. Nick scoffed, leaning back. "Right. Sure." He didn't believe her. He didn't even care. And that hurt more than anything. So, she left. She walked out, packed her bags, and didn't look back. The tears came later, but they weren't just from heartbreak. They were from relief. Nick had built a prison out of his pain, but she had been the one keeping herself locked inside it. Now, she was free. Rebuilding from the ashes. Emily didn't expect healing to feel so quiet. At first, it was all noise, her own thoughts, second-guessing herself, the phantom presence of Nick in the spaces they once shared. She'd reach for her phone, half expecting a text from him. But it never came. Not an apology. Not a regret-filled confession. Just silence. And that, more than anything, told her she made the right choice. The unraveling of guilt. She spent the first few weeks untangling the guilt that had wrapped itself around her. She had loved him. Had given him every chance. Had carried the weight of his pain until it nearly crushed her. And yet, even after all of that, he had never really seen her. She wasn't just grieving the relationship. She was grieving the version of herself that had stayed for so long, believing she owed it to him. But she owed herself more. The small victories. The first time she went grocery shopping without feeling the ache of resentment, it felt like a win. The first time she went out with friends without checking her phone, waiting for Nick to ask when she'd be home, it felt like freedom. Then came the bigger victories, sleeping soundly without the weight of his expectations, cooking for herself instead of someone who never appreciated it, rediscovering what she actually enjoyed. She even signed up for a yoga class, something Nick would have scoffed at. And the first time she stretched into a pose and felt her own body, her own strength, she almost laughed. Nick reached out once. A short, emotionless text. "So, you really left, huh?" She stared at the screen, waiting for the pang of sadness. The regret. The temptation to respond. But it never came. Instead, she turned off her phone, set it down, and stepped outside, breathing in air that finally felt like hers. For the first time in years, she wasn't carrying anyone else's weight but her own. And damn, did it feel good. Thank you for watching Exposed and Broken, like and subscribe. See you soon.